This is Sports Talk with Steve Jones, a Seven Mountains Media production. Your daily talk show with the voice of Penn State football and men's basketball, featuring interviews with special guests. Now here's your host, Steve Jones.
Happy Friday, everybody. Great to be with you on this Friday as we head into the weekend and week number 1 in the books for us. What you have discovered over the last few days is Seiko is probably the better looking of the two. But that's just, it was to be expected, right? It's so great to be with you. Chance to go into this weekend. Penn State's got a big game coming up on Sunday with Rutgers at 6:30. That is another quad one opportunity for Penn State as they hit the stretch run here. It's also going to be another interesting weekend as well because you've got North Carolina's playing at Virginia tomorrow. All right?
Yeah.
North Carolina entered the season ranked number 1. So how many wins does North Carolina have in quad 1 right now, heading into the weekend?
Well, I know from what I saw on ESPN the other day, there was a whole article about the bracketology and everything, and the headline said, North Carolina fans look away.
They're 0-9.
So that
quad one
must not be good.
They are 0-9. So they're at Virginia. Virginia obviously is an obvious quad 1 game.
Yeah.
But let's take North Carolina for a moment, Zach, and let's examine North Carolina basketball. Everyone remembers last year that they went to the national championship game. And they have most of those guys back. Leaky Black, Armando Bacot. Wow. That's why they started the
fresh
season
off of a championship appearance.
Number 1, right? Lost to Kansas in the title game, but entered the year ranked number 1.
They were ahead in that game by a bunch. Yeah. That the injury to Bacot.
But let's look at the reality of North Carolina basketball. In the past, let's see, so we'll go back. So here we are now, the last weekend of February. So here we are on the 24th. Up until February 1st last year, this is how they played. So if you go back for North Carolina basketball over the past 17 months, they played outstanding basketball for 2 of those months. All the other ones, they have played like this. My point is, this is who they are. That the Mirage was actually starting February 1st last year. And maybe even later than that, like February 15th. They had to win their way in last year to get in. It's almost like everyone forgets with NC State basketball under Jim Valvano in 1983. They won their way into the tournament. Now, their problem was they'd started out great. They were like 12-1 early, and then Derek Whittenburg got hurt. And Whittenburg, of course, was involved in the final play where Lorenzo Charles hit the winning shot against Houston. But they had to win their way in. North Carolina essentially won its way into the tournament last year, and they did it with a thin group. Remember when they won at Duke in Coach K's last game in Cameron Indoor? What did North Carolina not do in the second half of that game? Substitute. It was the same 5 guys.
And you see that quite a bit with other teams. It's just who they trust the most, whether it's the veterans or that group, because it's do or die. It's win or go home. And that's why you see most teams go. I think Villanova, I remember just when I grew up watching them and the way that Jay Wright would, in the season about 8 or 9 or so, and then it really got 6. Right. It was dead set on 6.
And my point about the fact that he played 5 guys in the second half of the Duke game, which they won, played really well.
It was smart coaching by Davis.
Right. Was that I don't think they have a lot of depth. And now you're seeing it this year. They don't have the depth. And the reality is that from November 9th last year to about maybe February the 10th, they played the same way in that stretch a year ago that they've been playing all season this year. In other words, the aberration is the run they made. That's actually the aberration. This isn't. This is actually maybe, I think it's safe to say, who they are.
Yeah.
And that's what I find interesting. And a big problem for the ACC is not the top. The top of the ACC is good. Everyone's telling you that it's the bottom of the ACC that is dragging the conference down, led by Louisville. I watched, I was talking to Kathy Drysdale on Tuesday night, and her son Derek Lively, of course, plays for Duke, starts for Duke.
I like keeping up with him.
All right, and Derek's doing well.
He's gotten so much better.
Oh, he's a good player. He's adjusted, and you can see as a shot blocker, as a rebounder, getting better. He's a finisher around the hoop. But they played. I told Kathy, I said, I watched a little bit of the game over the weekend, but then I watched some of the Louisville game. Louisville's terrible.
Yeah, they're bad.
I mean, they've won 3 games the entire season. In Power 5, Louisville and Cal are the 2 teams of Power 5 where you sit back and go, goodness gracious, they are not good.
Yeah, there's some really heavy bottom feeders, if you will, when it comes to basketball this year.
There are. There are also some teams out there that, and you're going to see Rutgers coming in here on Sunday. Rutgers is okay offensively.
They're a good defensive
but
team.
they're a great defensive team. And they're quick, length. They have a lot of length. Like you look at a guy like Caleb McConnell, 6'7", great wingspan for Caleb McConnell. O'Murray, great wingspan, and what a leaper he is. He is a great athlete playing in that middle spot. But you look at Rutgers, they keep the scores down. You look at Wisconsin, they keep the scores down. You know who else is doing it right now? Tennessee. You watch Tennessee play basketball right now, they're winning games with scores in the 40s and 50s.
Yeah.
They can't score enough. They've had a couple guys out, but they can't score enough right now. And I think, and to me, those are the teams that are going to have trouble in the tournament. Now, somebody that is an excellent defensive team that I think actually might thrive in the tournament is UCLA. UCLA is really good.
They're up there. Yeah.
In fact, I'm glad UCLA is not in the conference now because they're pretty good.
That'd be a pain.
They're really good, and they're an excellent defensive team. They are not an exciting team to watch. Most of the country plays a pretty wide open, exciting brand of basketball. But there are certain teams that drag it down. Tennessee, by the way, is dragging it down. Now, again, this is not in any way an indictment of Rick Barnes, Steve Peichel, Greg Gard at all. In other words, as really good coaches, and all 3 are really good coaches. All right? The oddity is, I've met and talked to Mick Cronin a couple of times, Greg Gard several times. Steve Peichel I've never talked to. It's just whatever the circumstance. I just never have had a chance to. And I like being around them. And they're really good coaches. They've looked at their personnel and they've said, this is the best way to win. I respect that. Now let's talk about the overall good of the game. When Wisconsin beat Michigan, a week ago? Right around that? Game was in Madison. They won the game 64-59. In the final 10 minutes and 45 seconds, how many baskets did Wisconsin hit?
I remember because you quizzed me on this one.
Yes, I did. Off the air, yes.
Yes, you quizzed me before this one. 0.
Excellent job.
Yes.
Well
See,
done.
I pay attention even after
class. Well done,
class.
Grasshopper. Well done. Yes, last 10:45 did not hit a single basket.
They made free throws.
10 for 12 at the free throw line.
Yeah.
Do you want to watch that?
I didn't, and I'm glad I didn't.
I mean, that's the issue that you have. In other words, the coaches have to come up with the best way for their team to win.
Yeah.
So, again, this is not an indictment about coaching styles. It's your job to look at your personnel and say, okay, what can I do with it? What can't I do with it? All right? And that's what you're seeing. And it's not appealing with certain teams. Rutgers is not an appealing team to watch. Wisconsin is not an appealing team to watch. Right now, Tennessee is not.
Yeah.
But they're winning. And
they're winning. They're losing to selective teams because top Alabama, I was going to say, well, defensive, the way that they're playing right now, I feel like an Alabama would just blow by them. And then you look at the recent schedule and they kept Alabama in check. But then they're losing to Vanderbilt, Kentucky, and most recently Texas A&M.
And Kentucky swept them this year, as a matter of fact. The game at Texas A&M, again, the inability to really get points on the board. Texas A&M was able to do enough. There was fouls at the end of that game on Tuesday night, and that's what opened up the door for Texas A&M to win at home. Plus, Texas A&M has been playing really good basketball. Texas A&M, I believe, is now ahead of them in the
I was
standings
surprised when I looked the other day. They were second in the SEC.
Yeah.
I think this was before the game leading, because I said, oh my gosh, they're favorites against, and not enough people were buying in. And I said, how did they? I remember they went from 10th in the SEC maybe a month or two ago,
right?
And now they're at the top.
Right. So that's where they are in all of this. Alabama plays more of an NBA-style game because, we all know Nate Oates brought his team in here, 4 years ago, something like that.
Yeah.
And when they played Lamar and those guys, and Penn State won the game. But he had Kyra Lewis, who was a first-round pick, was on the team, but Penn State won the game. And in doing the pregame show, Dick Girardi and I talked about how Nate Oates wants to play. He wants to play the way the NBA plays.
An NBA game.
Which means he wants 3 offensive results. He wants either a layup, a free throw, or a three-pointer.
Golden State.
Right? That's how he wants to play. That's why when you hear coaches, and Micah Shrewsbury talks about this, getting them to take the shots we want. Well, what are the shots you want somebody to take? Well, can you force somebody to their offhand? That's one way of doing it, which is what a week ago when Penn State won at Minnesota, Seth Lundy did a great job of taking Jamison Battle to his right hand, because Jamison Battle is a heavy left-hand centric player. So he got him moving to his right. That's one area to do it. But the other one is, can you get them to take a series of 17 to 20-foot twos? Those are the shots you want people taking. If they make them, okay, they make them.
Yeah, the mid-range, low percentage jumpers, because if you're already that far away, you might as well take the 3.
Exactly. It now becomes a point value. So when you hear coaches talk about trying to get teams to take shots we want them to take, it usually is going
Long
to the
range
opposite
twos.
hand and a 17 to 20-foot two. Okay. I'll let you take a 17 to 20-foot two. Your odds are against you.
Yeah.
All right. And I know people have talked about Penn State being such a heavy three-point shooting team. Right now, their percentages, 45% of their points are from 2, 44% are from 3. So it's finally flipped a little bit. But only 11% from the free throw line to the stage. But Penn State is a 53% two-point shooting team. Let's give just the quick math education on the 3. Zach takes 18 two-point shots. I'm going to make you an All-American here.
All right. I like it.
Zach takes 18 two-point shots. He makes 9 of them. 18 points. 50%.
Yeah.
So far, that Math 35 class I took here at Penn State's paying off. Now, Zach steps back and takes 18 three-point shots. He makes 6. 33%. How many points did you get?
Same value.
Points. So 33% in threes is the equivalent to 50% in twos on point value. So when you see an Andrew Funk shooting 41, you see a Seth Lundy shooting 44 to 46, you see Jalen pick it up to 38, 39. When you're seeing that, that means they're well above the point value on shots. And that's what that means. Time now for the segment that energizes America, and that is This Week on This Day in Sports History. Now, I can already tell you one right off the gate.
Yeah. Where I'm going with this, what I already have lined up.
1980.
Yeah.
The United States down 2-1 heading into the third period. Scores 3 unanswered goals. And beats Finland 4-2 to win the Olympic gold medal in Lake Placid in ice hockey. I know the world thinks that the U.S. won it the night they beat the Soviets. Probably did.
But that wasn't the championship.
That was actually a semifinal. And they had to come in and beat Finland in the final to win the gold medal.
Well, I put together this nice intro, so
Go
let's
ahead,
have
let
at
her
it.
rip.
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.
It's like stepping in a sports time machine. Let's look back in time on this day in sports history with Steve Jones.
It won. Now you get to finish out. This is where I have now taken the first 6 innings.
Yeah.
Right now, I brought you in to take care of the big innings, 7, 8, and 9.
Well, we're still going to have some pitching changes here because I'm going to T-ball it. I'm going to set it up on the tee, and you're going to hit the home run. So 1917, the Red Sox sell Smokey Joe Wood, his arm dead at 26, age of 26. I'm 26, to Cleveland for $15,000. I also didn't pitch as much.
Well, he was a 30-game winner, but he threw a ton of innings for the Red Sox. And the ace of that staff, when he left, ended up being Babe Ruth.
All the way back in 1917. So we brought up my next one was going to be 1980 because they're fresh off of that communist Russia and
AKA them.
Yeah, them, the Soviets. And also on this day, 1980, the Winter Olympic Games close in New York. So
beautiful Lake Placid.
Yep.
All right. Do you know what the Olympic Village is now?
I do not.
A prison.
Oh. Can't say that it really, I don't know if it fits or not.
The people that stayed
theme.
there hated it.
No.
Because it was designed in such a way that they knew they were going to convert it over, so they did.
1982, Wayne Gretzky scores an NHL record 78th goal of the season en route to 92 total.
And I think he had 212 points that year, too, which is the NHL record. Today, somebody gets to 100, they have a parade.
I just saw it was I don't follow too much NHL, but I think somebody just reached, it was Connor McDavid was the 5th fastest to 800 points.
Yes. Yeah.
I remember what I read.
You're doing so well.
It's the cameras. It's the new web show setup. I got to be on my A game. I got to have my fastball at all times. 1987, the LA Lakers center Kareem Abdul-Jabbar scores his 36,000th NBA point in a 97-93 win over the Suns in Phoenix.
5 NBA titles with the Lakers, 1 with the Bucks, 3 NCAA championships with UCLA. Unreal. I mean, great player, great winner. He actually did make, believe it or not, a 3-point shot in his career. 1.
Would he do well in today's game? Or would teams not want him? Because he didn't have that. He couldn't step out like a Joel Embiid. I just think of a Joel Embiid who can step outside. I guess he'd be like DeAndre Ayton doesn't do that. He has some of a shot, like an elbow shot from the foul line, but people don't trust him in the corner. You can put Joel Embiid anywhere.
Well, everything Kareem did was either layups or the sky hook.
The hook shot.
The sky hook was unblockable, and he had range with the sky hook. This is not a guy that was sky hooking on the block. I mean, he could step out to 15, 18 feet and hit the sky hook.
Yeah.
Would he be able to play today? I would have my doubts, only because that's not how the game is played.
I would just think he'd be more of a DeAndre Ayton role. Like he wouldn't be the focus of, because his athleticism would still, like, why is DeAndre Ayton in the league?
I mean, Zach Edey is not going to be an NBA player.
No, he's not fast enough. He's not, and his game isn't.
He doesn't face up to the basket. Now, he does shoot free throws well, showing that he can actually face up and shoot, but in the offense, he never does. Trace Jackson Davis is going to struggle to get in the NBA.
Yeah.
I mean, why do you think he's back this year?
NIL, and some scouts told you that.
I mean, I know he had COVID last year when he was going through the NBA workout session, but I think he was probably hearing you're no better than a mid-second round pick.
Yeah. So, well, that's where we'll finish up for this day in sports history.
That's why I look at Jalen Pickett. Jalen Pickett.
His game's fun. It's fun. It's a little unorthodox. It's fun.
So I guess the best way sometimes, I don't usually like comparing people to other people, but sometimes you have to give them a gauge what kind of player. So you're saying, can he play in the NBA? Let me give you a guy, college basketball, that is an NBA player, where Jalen Pickett has a similar college game to this guy, Jalen Brunson. All right, that, at Villanova. And now look at how the longevity and a free agent contract that Jalen Brunson got. I mean, Jalen Brunson has turned out to be a really good pro. And the fact is that, look, Pickett's the kind of guy who finds open guys. He can post up. Pickett's also the kind of guy that is showing more and more range with his shot. And has played, let's face it, he's played great basketball this year. Not good. He's played great basketball this year.
All America type. He's not going to make the first or probably the second team, but I feel like he's a shoo-in for the third team.
All America?
Yeah, All America. I think he'll land some, because so many outlets. I don't know, maybe not necessarily AP, but he's going to show up as an All America choice by maybe some other.
Essentially, when I vote for the Wooden Award, it's like a first and second team. You get to vote for 10 people, so you're essentially putting first team All America, second team All America.
He'll get votes.
Well, I know he's going to get one.
Yeah, he's going to get votes.
He's going to get one.
Yeah.
I know that.
Oh, from who?
Okay.
Do tell.
I know a person that's voting for him. I know him really well. Yeah, I've had a vote now for 37 years on that.
Yeah.
So, and then I also do vote for AP Big Ten, and of course I vote for the All Big Ten team as well. So now the AP one is not an All America team. I'm voting for AP Big Ten. So when you hear about that. Do you want to? I know we have Joe Putnam coming up.
Coming up very soon, yes.
Right. So do you want to do the clown of the day now?
Gosh.
That way we can take care of it. I can give you a moment to sit back and examine all the various candidates, because there are usually a lot of candidates for the clown of the day.
Yeah. Well, I got a fancy intro for that as well.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I know.
That's great.
Why so serious?
It's time for the Sports Clown of the Day, where Zach and Steve nominate an unlucky winner from the news.
I guess it's the update on Alvin Kamara.
Yeah.
He played a full NFL season, and then just this off season, the consequences of his actions are coming back to him. So there is that. The Alabama situation too. I don't, I'm bringing up criminal offenses here,
but you know what, Alabama.
With one player, a teammate giving a gun to the.
Well, it's not just a player. It's like Brandon Miller.
He's all America.
Okay.
He's
an All America. He's 19 points, 8 boards a game. He is an NBA player. He puts his name in the draft. He is going to go probably in the top 12 in the NBA draft. And what's interesting with that is the Tuscaloosa district attorney says there's nothing to charge him with. So one guy calls another guy and says, "Hey, I need your gun.
Can I borrow something?"
Now Nate Oates handled this all wrong.
That's kind of part of it too, is there's just this cluster of very bad optics, and it's like, well, he didn't really do anything wrong. So my limited knowledge of law and the way that it works, this is accessory to murder.
I'm not going to be an expert on Alabama law.
Yeah.
I just try to keep away from it.
Yeah.
If I can. So I don't know. All I know is it's his gun that was used.
Yeah.
In it. And because it's been in court, they said Miles was the one that he asked for and received the gun from Miller. Oates was like wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah.
Nate,
he was unlucky.
Yeah. Nate, no. Now, there are two parts to what Nate Oates was talking about the other day, and he's tried to walk back what he said. Number one, I think Oates talked about this in the afternoon, and supposedly this came out in the morning. So it wasn't like they weren't prepared that it came out. It came out. And then he talked about it, and then he said that. You're like, oh, you can't go that route. You can't do this. But he also indicated they knew what the situation was. If you read what he said, they knew what the situation was. Right? And that's what's bizarre about this. So Tuscaloosa Detective Brandon Culpepper testified Tuesday that Miller brought Darius Miles' gun to him on the night of the fatal shooting of 23-year-old Jamea Janae Harris after Miles texted him and asked him to do so. It's a preliminary hearing for Miles and Michael Lynn Davis. They face capital murder charges in Harris's death. She was shot and killed near the Alabama campus January 15th. Investigators wrote in court documents that Miles, who has since been removed from the Crimson Tide basketball program, admitted to providing the gun used in the fatal shooting, but Davis fired the weapon. Culpepper said Tuesday that Miles told Davis where his gun was. So it's Davis's gun, right? And Miles told Davis where his gun was in Miller's car. So evidently Miles' gun was in Miller's car. And Miller has not been charged with a crime. Nate Oates said in the press conference late on Tuesday that the program had been aware of Miller's alleged link to the case. Well, if they've been aware of it, then why didn't we come up with a better statement for it? Because at some point it was going to come out. The district attorney, the deputy district attorney, Paula Whitley, in Tuscaloosa said there's nothing we could charge Miller with. So the way I'm reading it is this would be Miles' gun that was in Miller's car and that he asked Miller to bring it to him. Is that the order you have it in?
Yeah.
Okay. Oates, when asked about Miller allegedly bringing the gun to Miles, said, "We knew about that." See, this is the issue I have here. How do you come up with a poorly worded statement like that when you already knew about it? We knew about that. Can't control everything anybody does outside of practice. That's bad. Nobody knew that was going to happen. Brandon hasn't been in that type of trouble, nor is he in any trouble in this case. Wrong spot at the wrong time. Oh, boy. Oates did say that he's been receiving criticism for, quote, unfortunate remarks. Okay. Miller's averaging 19 points. I mentioned 19 points, 8 boards a game, so we were pretty close on that because that's accurate. And he's projected to be, I said top 12, they say top 5 NBA draft pick. Defense lawyer, meanwhile, suggested during Tuesday's hearing that Miles was reacting defensively when he told Davis where the gun was located. The reason that the gun was provided to Michael Davis was for protection, Mary Turner argued. Oh, boy. What a mess. That is a mess. And that's where that is. That is another one of those awful, awful cases going on. I mean, Miller's going to play this weekend. He's going to play this weekend. And again, he's not charged with anything. No. But you're talking about messing with, hey, let's... Number one, why is his car, the gun in his car anyway? I mean, that's the part that strikes you. Why is the gun even in the car? Why is it in Miller's car? So, and Alabama is going to be at home at Coleman tomorrow at 2 when they take on Arkansas. That's where it is. Of course, Penn State coming up on Sunday, 6:30, 6 o'clock, the airtime.
Yeah. We're getting connected with Joe Putnam here.
Are we? We'll just
want to get him on the show.
Yeah. Well, as soon as just give me the thumbs up and let us know when we have a show.
Absolutely.
And if there's an issue, just hit it on the side.
Yeah.
It'll make it work.
The new system.
And everything's new here. All right, we're having a lot of fun doing this. This is week 1 in the books for us, and we're having a blast with it so far. Hopefully you are. Give us some feedback. Let us know.
They can let us know. There's comment section. There's
somebody misspelled hate. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
What's that 4-letter word that begins?
By the way, this morning was winter workout number 6 for Penn State football.
Yep.
So they've got 2 more next week. They've got one on Tuesday, one Thursday, then spring break. Then after that, they then begin to make the transition to what will be spring practices. And of course, there's Pro Day coming up. The Combine is also on the horizon as well in Indianapolis. I will say this about the Combine. DeMaurice Smith made comments that he wants to see the Combine stopped. There's one element of the Combine which does have to change. And I am all for the interview process because you need to talk to people, but you need to have people in the room that just know how to interview people. And we get stories all the time about absolutely horrible questions they're asked of players. Right? Just, okay? Don't bring people that have no skill like that into the room. Just don't. Right? You know, if I'm going to draft a quarterback, say I'm going to draft Bryce Young. Right? Look, all I got to do is make a couple of phone calls. I want to call Nick Saban. I want to talk to him. I want to talk to Bill O'Brien. Hey, I know Bill's now with the Patriots, but still, I talked to Bill O'Brien. Hey, Bill, you coached him. What do you think of him? The whole deal. What's his character like? What's he like to be around? What kind of leader? Hey, Nick. I'd ask them those questions. And then with Bryce Young, I'd throw up a whiteboard, bring my offensive coordinator in and say, hey, look, okay, tell me what you see here. Take us through this. What do you see? How do you process? Things that make sense. I don't really need to know much about his life story. I've got enough people around him where I can ask that I trust their life story. Okay? You're going to, you'll call Nick Saban and say, Nick, tell me about the kid. I know there's going to be mostly glowing and so on and so forth, but, you could read between the lines on certain people. For example, you would want to ask a question. Let's go back to a quarterback that was highly touted and ended up not being drafted high because there was a question about him. That's Connor Cook of Michigan State. Remember when he was going through the draft process? Well, through connections, I would like to know why he was not a captain. Why wasn't he a captain ever at Michigan State? And I'd like to find out from some other people why he was not. Because it's unusual for a quarterback, especially the starting quarterback of multiple years, to not be a captain. That I would like to know. But some of the questions they get asked, and we see them, there's always stories afterward about they got asked this, and you're like, what are you asking that question for? Like, I'm talking really convoluted, stupid stuff. Right? And you can tell it's usually not the head coach or the general manager that's asking the question. Right? They're trying to figure out whether you can play. And it's going to be interesting to see how this quarterback element plays out. Because I think the two guys that, in my opinion, that go right to the top, Bryce Young, and I would have no qualms about drafting Bryce Young first overall. Now, I know it's the Bears, so the Bears have Justin Fields. But I'm saying if you needed a quarterback, I would have no qualms about him. I know he may not be the tallest guy out there. I got it. But there's something about the way he plays, the way he moves, how instinctive he is. that I think is a big plus. And the other guy is C.J. Stroud. Will Levis is an interesting look. Obviously, I've seen Will throw more passes than all these other guys combined because of seeing him in practice at Penn State. Will has great size, mobility, right? Great release. He's got a lot of really great pluses. But is it going to translate into the NFL? Because here's the issue that when you get to the NFL, they'll put time in with you, but they're all big about getting ready for the next game. There's not a lot of time during the season spent on player development. And the other one this one surprises me over and over again, is Anthony Richardson of Florida. Every time I see he's a first-round pick, I sit back and go, really? Every game I watched of him this year, I didn't like. I mean, I didn't. And remember, I watched part of the preparation for the Rose Bowl. I watched Florida, Utah. Right? It was, I ended up Florida won the game. Would they win by 1, something like that, if I recall. He's a guy that didn't light me up watching him play. Like, okay. Those are the guys I look at quarterback-wise and sit back and say, I think there are 2 clear ones. There are others that will be first-round picks, but to me, there are only 2 ones in the first round. Now, we'll see. Now, of course, everything will be done in Indianapolis with the, quote, measurables. How big somebody's hands happen to be. How fast do they run? Man, all you got to do is rack up a tape of Bryce Young, and you watch him move, make plays, see the field. He sees chess pieces all over the place. And that's what I see in him. And I think, to me, he is a clear-cut guy. That's me. I just like the way he plays. Same thing with Stroud. Stroud's accurate, throws the ball on the line. But it's going to be interesting to see out of the combine what people think of various players. Joey Porter Jr. Length, great speed. Really does. I mean, you ought to see one day in practice. And it was one of the Fast Fridays. And it ends up being, quote, a fumble. And it pops up to him. And he decides to take it all the way back for a touchdown. Zach, he left a vapor trail. Yeah. Holy mackerel. Now, let me tell you a quick story about character for a moment with Joey Porter Jr. I'm not going to get into with whom or what organization, but Joey had some NIL, okay, with a group. When he declared for the NFL draft, there was still 2 months to go on the NIL. You know what he asked the group to do? Instead of taking it himself? He asked them to get it to the King brothers so their parents could go to the Rose Bowl. Character.
Very thoughtful, yeah.
Character. Stories that don't come out. Yeah. That's the kind of guy I want on my team. Now, it helps that he's a great athlete with a lot of length and could play corner. But that's the kind of character that screams out. It's just terrific. I know we're having an internet connection problem with Joe. That's why we don't have him on. We'll get him on next week.
Yeah.
We'll do that.
Have our inaugural guests, Joe, Brian Tripp.
Yeah.
Get some of the regulars, Neil Coulong, back on. People can see Neil Coulong for the first time if they've been along for the ride with this show.
Yes. So, and yeah, we'll be doing that. Looking forward to it very much. Well, it's been a fun first week.
Yeah.
I mean, even though, yesterday's show was in Columbus.
3 shows now in the book since we started midweek here.
Right. You got to see the spacious palatial hotel rooms that we stay in. I could care less where we stay. Right. Although I do like the idea of at certain spots of racking up some Marriott points. I do like that. But yeah, yesterday was the Blackwell. It's not a Marriott, but that's okay. It's all right. It's nice. Then next week on to Chicago. Then back to Chicago.
Yeah.
This time the Big Ten tournament is at the United Center. Ever tell you about the first time in the United Center? The first ever Big Ten tournament was in the United Center. So this is 1997 or something like that. Okay. And so they want to explain to everybody, each team, how the tournament's going to work since the Big Ten had never had a tournament before. So a team would go out, it would have its shoot around, and then when it was done, they would bring them back to one of the locker rooms to meet with them. Well, of course, the locker room that was chosen to have the meetings happened to be the Chicago Bulls locker room.
And I see where this is going.
Even though the lockers were all cleared out and nameplates were taken off, they weren't completely cleared out, by the way.
Yep.
Everybody figured out right away which one was Michael Jordan.
MJ's, yeah.
Everybody figured out right away which one Michael Jordan's was. Needless to say, this is back before iPhones, but some guys had some cameras with them, so they took pictures. Some guys want
for the memories.
Yeah, so they brought the cameras to take pictures of the arena. Because, the United Center, they were winning championships in the United Center. So they took pictures. Well, now they got the added bonus. They all got to go into the Bulls locker room and got to get pictures at MJ's locker and the whole deal. It's amazing how you can figure that stuff out. Just like when Penn State went to the Pinstripe Bowl, the players all figured out which one was Derek Jeter's locker. Now, the security guard pointing out where it was the same. It was the same deal in Chicago. Well, it's that one right there. That helped confirm it.
No,
MJ's locker. Right? It's like here when people take tours of the station. Where is Zach Seiko's cubicle? Lots of pictures.
They can't find me.
Right? All the tours ask the same thing. And you're very humble about it. Hope you enjoyed this opening week of the show.
Yeah.
Back on Monday. Looking forward to it. Penn State Rutgers Sunday, 6:30 in the Jordan Center. I'm beginning on 6. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for tuning into Sports Talk with Steve Jones, a 7 Mountains Media production. Check back daily for all of the latest sports news and analysis with the voice of Penn State football and men's basketball, Mr. Steve Jones.